Okay, moving on to our next part. This probably looks different if you watched the first part, because I changed some stuff up, we're gonna glue it down, and we're gonna continue on. Let's have some fun. Okay, we got our styro glue again. I'm just gonna dust off, you know, being in the garage, you did get sort of some dirt and stuff. So I'm just gonna take the styro glue. It is a thicker consistency. I may switch to hot glue for some of this stuff. Not all of it, but I may switch to hot glue. Okay. Make sure to get the real delicate, you know, thinner areas for sure. And I'm going to push down on every area. Okay. Take that off, because we're just gonna glue. I couldn't make my mind up, that's why there's so many little pieces here, because I couldn't make my mind up, and I cut stuff and I recut it, and so we needed all sort of one layer, and so I'm gonna go ahead and do all that. You don't have to have it one layer, this is just the way I'm doing it. Okay. The reason you might ask, well, why are you putting all those there? It's because I'm going to plaster over some of this stuff. Now, a lot of this is going to be covered up by that big piece over there, but not everything. And I want it to be as smooth as possible when we start plastering, so we don't have a whole bunch of weird sort of empty spots. Okay, so now that you've seen some of the glue, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of this, and we're going to come back and we're going to work on the plaster. And I honestly haven't decided if I want to like keep this or if I want to plaster it. If I plaster it, it becomes this whole part of the whole thing. So I don't know if we're going to keep these bigger pieces off or not. Probably not, but we are going to go ahead and plaster that because the water needs, you know, it needs to be waterproof before we pour the resin. All right, guys, now we're gonna plaster the mountain. So I've got my plaster again. I've got my bowl of water. And again, we're just gonna dip it on in. Let some of that water run off. And just pick a spot and start. Make sure y'all can see that. And just smooth down. You can always get more water on your fingertips. And brush it along that way. Don't let your plaster fold in on itself. There's a good chance you won't get it back the way you want it. And don't worry about these holes. Any holes that we, in this plaster that we cannot get sorted out right now are going to be part of the plaster of Paris that we do next, which you can find plaster of Paris at any home improvement store. So Lowe's, Home Depot. I actually don't know if there might be local stores where you guys live, and I'm not sure. But it's just plaster of Paris. Also, I'm sure Amazon has it. So just follow the directions on there and just get going. And we're just going to take these strips. By the way, the other one that we were plastering, it took me about 2.5 rolls. And I bought the rolls off Amazon. It took me about 2.5 of those rolls. So this and the other piece, I'm thinking will probably take the rest. So I'm going to have to buy more plaster for sure. Luckily, it's not terribly expensive. I think I paid $25 for for the 5 rolls on Amazon. This mountain has been plastered with plaster sheets. You can see some have more holes than others. That is totally okay, because over here we have our plaster of Paris, which you can get at any Home Depot store or Lowe's or anything. And I'm just mixing it up. Okay. And we're going to cover some of these holes. Don't worry also if this starts to harden, because I have found that if you just add a little bit more water, I like to use warm, just a little bit more warm water perhaps, it softens it back up. So then you don't have to throw away what you have in your bowl or, you know, try to figure that out. And we're just going to paint this whole mountain with our paintbrush. That way when you put, when you go to paint your mountain, you don't see all those tiny little holes everywhere. Okay? Oops. Sometimes you get those little strings from the plaster, and whoops, there's another one. And yes, I'm working in my garage, Today it is about 22 degrees. So it's a little chilly today. Hopefully you can see the difference. Let me zoom in. Okay. So hopefully you can see the difference over there versus over there. If you need to do a second coat of this plaster of Paris, then go ahead and do it. Don't be shy. And I will see you when it's time for painting. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like, share, a comment. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.